Okay, so digital humans and digital twins, they are something that humanity has been after for some time now. And there's the slideshow. And I hope you can see my screen. Can you? You should be able to do that.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. So have you, I don't know if you have heard of digital twins, but for instance, cities have them already, or at least some cities, and many digital twins are being built. So digital twins, where did it come from? So basically, this is one of the earliest so-called twin cities, or models of a city. So that is not digital, as you can see. It was built around more than 200 years ago at the times of Napoleon, because Napoleon had the idea that he wanted to know everything that was happening in different cities in France. So he thought that to be able to do that, he would need some miniatures, some models of those cities. So then that would help him govern the country. And the basic idea is still valid. So that's why these digital twins are being built now. So in this way, you can, for instance, design the city structure in a different way than if you just walk around in the streets or if you just look at the map. Of course, maps were used before these kinds of city models were built, and those were also valuable things, maps. And not everybody could read them. So it was highly secret information, what maps had. So what does a digital twin of a city do? So I have here like a picture I took somewhere. So it tracks in real time like these different things, like how the water systems, how the power systems work in each part of the city, buses, trains, how much there are cars on parking lots, for instance, environment sensors, as you can see, like if the air quality is good or bad in different areas of the city. Tampere, for instance, has several places that measure the air quality, also temperature, audio sensors. So those of you who are living in Tampere, you might have noticed that the city is building new street lamps. Have you noticed that? That a new street lamp system is being installed everywhere in the city. So those lamps have sensors for audio, and they will also notice if in some place of the city there is like noise that shouldn't be there, like if there's an emergency, for instance, then that info will go from a central station from the digital twin to the maybe fire department or police department, so they can go to the place where there's an emergency even before people start calling them. Okay, let's see. I have here a video.
There are many notable twins in the world today. You might even be a twin. But do you know what a digital twin is? Essentially, it's a digital version of a physical object, a dynamic, up-to-date digital replica of a built asset or environment. With the help of building information modeling, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and Internet of Things technology, data from the original asset is used to build and improve the digital twin. By providing a precise, up-to-date model of its original, a digital twin can help designers, engineers, contractors, owners, and manufacturers create more efficient structures. Digital twins can help with everything from planning, design, and construction to operations and maintenance. Consider a building that's already been designed and constructed. Imagine there's a digital twin of the entire facility, from the roof to the HVAC to the mechanical, engineering, and plumbing systems. Now imagine that sensors in the building provide the digital twin with real-time information. The digital twin updates itself according to the data. Then, building owners can view areas where the building is aging or faulty and make improvements. On a greater scale, multiple digital twins can be integrated in an entire ecosystem. So, how did digital twins get their start? In the 1960s, NASA was one of the first agencies to use mirroring technology to replicate systems in space. Notably, NASA created a replica of Apollo 13, which became critical in the midst of its challenging mission. Engineers were able to test solutions on the replica to avoid further disaster. Dr. Michael Greaves, Chief Scientist for Advanced Manufacturing at the Florida Institute of Technology, introduced the concept of the digital twin at an American Society of Mechanical Engineers conference in 2002. He proposed a product lifecycle management center that contained the elements of a digital twin, the physical space, the virtual space, and the flow of information between the two. The manufacturing industry was quick to adopt digital twins, and the architecture, engineering, and construction industry followed suit, with the help of technological advancements like BIM, or Building Information Modeling. Today, digital twin technology plays a big part in the digital transformation of the design, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and maintenance industries. A digital twin starts with knowledge of the assets and spaces that make up a facility. This type of descriptive twin is a live, editable version of design and construction data, such as a visual replica of assets or facilities. An informative twin has an added layer of operational and sensory data. As more and more data is added, the twin becomes richer and richer and more strongly linked to its physical counterpart. Predictive twins are able to leverage this operational data for insights, while comprehensive twins simulate future scenarios and consider what-if questions. In the future, twins will become autonomous, able to learn and act on behalf of users. Because digital twins can gather key information about things like population growth, natural resource supply levels, and historical data on environmental disasters, they can help build more resilient cities and infrastructures as the world changes. Eventually, an entire ecosystem of digital twins will help industries respond to global challenges with powerful, simultaneous changes. Right now, digital twins are helping operations and facility managers respond faster by removing the need for complex and time-consuming maintenance documents. Owners can gather information from the design and build phases to make faster business decisions, lowering operational and maintenance costs. Professionals on-site can predict material and labor cycles, reducing waste and enhancing safety. By helping professionals gain more insight into the inner workings of the world, digital twins are becoming partners in building a better future.
Okay, so those were digital twins. And you might have noticed that they also are providing many chances for designers. I mean, for 3D modelers, for instance, or virtual reality modelers. Also, things that this minor is all about, like this emerging media minor. For instance, the city of Tampere now actively wants to build a digital, like real-time digital twin of itself by, was it 2025 or something? And they are needing people to do that, of course. Okay, let's get to the next slide. So it's interesting enough that these airplanes, buildings, and cities can have and have digital twins, I think, but the digital twins of people are already on their way. Like there are many different levels where people have digital twins. For instance, well, social media is one. Search engines have a kind of digital twin of every one of us if we have done any Google searches. Of course, Google allows you to set your preferences about how much it knows about you, but many people don't adjust them. They just take them as they are. For instance, I'm an avid stalker of my digital twin in Google. So I want to know where that digital twin has been going. Of course, I know where I have been going, but I'm always interested in what Google thinks where I have been going. This is like the map of one given day. For instance, Google doesn't actually know where I live, in which address. That's an address that is nearby, but not actually our address that is showing there. Also, it doesn't always know if I have walked or if I have taken the bicycle or the bus or whatever. So it's not one-to-one digital twin, but it's interesting how much it does know about the routes that I take. Then if we go, oops, not yet there, but here, if we go back to healthcare, well, I'm talking about my own experiences now. Like 5 years ago, my jaw was operated for health reasons, and then they made a digital 3D scan of my skull for that purpose, and my teeth. So I asked the doctors to give me that scan, because I had this fun idea of maybe making a 3D print of my own skull while I'm still alive, but I haven't done it actually yet, but it would have been fun. Also, you can monitor your own health, and of course, if you go to a hospital, they will monitor your health for various reasons. So that's kind of a digital twin of you already then. And there are companies that that want to have like a whole human being scanned, and so that they can get like real-time data from a patient at all times, also when they are at home. And there are people, for instance, in the transhumanism movement who already want to have all their health data real time at their own use. So, but then another question is if we can really create realistic looking digital twins of ourselves, or if we can create realistic digital humans. I mean, I guess you have heard about the uncanny valley. Is there somebody who doesn't know about it in this class? I mean, these are first aid dummy dolls. Like in Finland, they are called Anne dolls. You might have been in contact with them. So, for instance, if you have to give like first aid to this kind of Anne doll to make them breathe, and they look just horrible, even more horrible than crash test dummies. And that's the general problem when you try to recreate a realistic looking human digitally or physically. So we are good at noticing how a human being should look like. And if there's something off, we notice it in a fraction of a second. So let's watch this video about the uncanny valley. It's a bit short.
Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the uncanny valley. I'm sure some of you are probably already very familiar with this topic, but I'm always surprised to find how many people haven't heard of it before, or who have heard of it but don't know what it is. So, enough beating around the bush, whatever that means, let's do this. Let's start off with a little history lesson. The concept of the uncanny valley was introduced in the 70s by a Japanese roboticist named Masahiro Mori. The story goes that Mori liked to build robots a whole lot, and over time he started building his robots to look increasingly human-like. And the more human qualities he gave to his bots, the more people liked them. Their vaguely human characteristics were charming. They looked like big, bolted, awkward children, and everybody loved them. But as Mori continued to improve his humanoid robots, adding synthetic skin and rudimentary facial expressions and such, he discovered a strange trend. He was surprised to find that people didn't respond to these new robots so well. Oh sure, other members of his field were impressed with his advances, but just being around these robots made people uneasy. This observation led Mori to come up with the theory of the uncanny valley. The premise is simple. If something that is clearly not human is given human qualities, we find those qualities endearing. But give it too many human characteristics, and it starts looking like an imperfect simulation, which we find kinda disquieting or even revolting. But once you get past that and make the object look and act almost like a perfect human, we start to... You know what? Hang on, I brought a chart. Where did I put the... Here we go. This graph depicts the uncanny valley theory. It shows the relationship between how human something looks and how much we like it. Let's start at the beginning of the curve. At this point, the object isn't human looking at all, and people respond to it with a big meh. But if we add a few human characteristics to the object, suddenly it's a lot more appealing. Now it's got personality. It's cute. Or awesome, as the case may be. But then, if we keep adding past a certain point, we hit this huge drop in appeal. Suddenly the object isn't cute anymore. Suddenly we're freaked out. But if we keep pushing past this point, eventually the object will become indistinguishable from human beings, and we'll be okay with it again. That area, right down there, is the uncanny valley. So why does this happen? The idea is that if an object is clearly not human, then its human-like characteristics will stand out and appeal to us. But if the object is almost, but not quite human, its non-human characteristics are all we're going to see. We know what a human looks like. I mean, we see him every day. So when something is off, we know it, and it's unsettling. So, now that we're all on the same page, let's steer the sucker back on topic. What does this all mean for games? 3D artists and animators have been fighting the uncanny valley for some time now, and they made a lot of progress over the years, but the battle's not over yet. Graphically, games have advanced to the point where we're having to struggle with this problem too. So what are our options? Theoretically, we want our games and characters to be visually appealing, which means we're going to be aiming for one of these two peaks. That gives us two options: photorealism or stylization. Let's start with the first one. There's a lot of appeal to the idea of photorealism. I mean, it's amazing to look at, it lends itself well to simulating reality in a visually believable way, which many game concepts can definitely benefit from. But technologically, we aren't quite there yet, and it shows. One of the main problems with aiming for photorealism is just how easy it is to screw up. As I pointed out before, the main problem with a character that's almost, but not quite human, is that all the areas the character falls short in become glaringly obvious. And it's not just an issue of model detail and texture resolution either. Movement has a huge impact on photorealism. Think of all the times you've seen a beautiful screenshot from a game and thought, good God, this is going to be incredible! And then you see the game in motion and it all just falls apart. There are a host of other factors that can compromise the humanity of a character. Flat voice acting, subpar animation, lame acting performance, smartass. Even environment interaction. I've seen a gamer play a hyper-realistic game, get stuck on geometry, and say, oh, what the hell, this is stupid, I'd never get stuck on that, and then play a Mario game and have the same thing happen without it bothering him at all. My point is, there are so many layers of detail required to create a completely believable human. If just a few of those details are missing or off, then the whole thing tumbles backward into the valley and all that hard work is for naught. The fight to create believable photoreal characters is a huge money sink, and it's a very, very easy battle to lose. Let me give you an example. You remember that Final Fantasy movie, Spirits Within? Square tried to create a film with photorealistic CG characters, and it did look pretty cool, I mean, especially for the time, but you remember how awkward and vaguely inhuman the characters seemed? Now, think about The Incredibles. Even though they're clearly stylized, caricatures of humans really, they look more lifelike and human than anybody in Square's ill-fated movie. And even though it's been over 10 years since Spirits Within, even with all of the technological advances we've made in that time, the same trend still holds true today. The characters in all of these movies continue to kind of just freak us the hell out, while the much more caricatured humans in these films somehow seem way more human and lifelike by comparison. On that note, let's have a look at our second option, stylization. Go ahead and make a quick mental list of your favorite game characters, just the first 5 that pop in your mind. I'll wait. No, I won't wait. Let's just look at a few well-known characters. Let's say Mario, Kratos, and some Final Fantasy people. These guys are some of the most recognizable characters in gaming. All extremely appealing, but not one of them photorealistic. Some of them may look more real than others, but you'd never mistake any one of them for a real live human being. And since they're clearly not human, it makes their human characteristics stand out. That's what makes Mario so cute and funny, Kratos so brutal and ruthless, and Final Fantasy characters so earnest and expressive. Those are their most human characteristics. We don't expect them to move perfectly or react to danger like we would, or when they get stuck on a 2-foot wall, we're willing to excuse it as an annoying idiosyncrasy of the medium, rather than being completely torn out of the experience. The beauty of sticking with this side of the valley is how open it is to aesthetic variety. You can go for any look you want to. You can go for a cell shading look, try a painterly style, keep it simple, go retro, 50s illustrations. The number of style possibilities are endless. And unlike the colossal expense of pursuing photorealistic graphics, even small developers can create a visually memorable game this way. Of course, this option's not without its own little pitfalls and challenges. The task of creating characters that are human enough to resonate with an audience without pushing the caricature too far is a fine line to walk. And for games that thrive on a feel of simulation, a stylized look could undermine the authenticity of the experience. It's a delicate balance. So, as you can see, in the end, we have 2 options when creating game worlds and characters. 1, we can strive for photorealistic models and try to increase fidelity by removing glitches, improving animation, perfecting voice acting, and pretty much ironing out every last kink. Or 2, we can try and perfect the craft of exemplifying human characteristics in non-human characters. I don't really think there's a wrong answer to this problem. I don't think pouring money into our graphics is a bad thing. That's the only way we're going to keep pushing the limits of the realism we can achieve, and maybe one day see what the other side of the valley holds. But it's important to remember that graphical fidelity does not equal human fidelity. The graphics whore in me is as eager as anybody to see the first believable photorealistic character in motion, but just don't forget how green the grass can be on this side of the valley. You may have noticed it's very brown looking over there. See you next week.
All right. That was extra credits with Uncanny Valley. And here's the valley one more time explained, and you can of course find a lot of more explanations of the Uncanny Valley online. So there was one researcher from the Tampere University who contacted me a couple of weeks ago. She wanted to talk about my views on the Uncanny Valley and on character design. And the strange thing that I noticed with her research was that she had decided not to take movement into account at all. And well, it might be that I'm also I also have a lot to do with animation, or just in general. I think that movement is a hugely important thing in the uncanny valley. Like, we have been able to paint, like artists have been able to paint photorealistic characters for like 600 years now. And even if we go way back, even ancient Romans, the statues that they made, Romans and Greeks, they were actually painted in lifelike colors, so that they were as close to like real looking human beings as possible at that time. But they didn't move. And that's what I notice also with the metahuman creator and other like real-time simulations, is that the movements don't match quite what we would expect from live human beings. And that has been already like researched. Like, it's the micro, like real humans have millions of micro movements that we do. We are not clean in that sense. Like, we are, in a way, any human being is not one organism at all, but well, you know that we have like billions of microorganisms living inside us, and they contribute to what we are in different ways. And well, what I mean is that a living being is a messy thing, and that makes also its movements in a way messy, because well, we were designed by evolution, by coincidence, and that's why our biological systems are not perfect at all. They are prone to failing all the time, and they need a lot of care. Yeah, I had before my neighbor had a bad stroke. She was giving lectures at the university about how many microorganisms, bacteria and other stuff we have living inside us and also on our skin, and it makes like from 0.5 kilogram to 1 kilogram of our weight, all these microorganisms. So that's my guess in that, well, every one of us is legion in a way, and that's why our movements are kind of messy. Anyway, then there is also a lot of talk about how to duplicate also human mind, but let's go into, there's a video that I have put, a TED talk about this DigiDug. It's about 12 minutes, so I think it's better that you watch it on your own rather than we watch it here, because there might be some lag. So let's have a small break here at this point. Okay, I'll put this recording on pause. So we are not close, as this digital DUG shows, close to getting that that valley, uncanny valley effect away, but we are not quite there. But we'll see if that will happen in the next 5 years. Maybe AI will help us to bridge that valley. Then you might have heard about a thing called transhumanism. So let's go there. So transhumanism is not just about replicating a person's looks into the digital world, or maybe replicating their like health data digitally. Transhumanism wants to upload also the consciousness of a human being into a digital format. And then the transhumanist philosophers and others, they claim that there is a point of digital singularity approaching when this will be possible, and of course they are doing their best for that singularity to actually arrive. Others are not so optimistic about it, like when this would actually be happening. But you might have seen a lot of like science fiction movies or TV shows that have these transhumanistic themes and topics. They've been around for a while, since at least the 1980s. But actually this is an older idea. It's not, if you stop thinking about the digital approach, and then I noticed that these transhumanism illustrations and memes and whatever there is, the visuals, they remind me of religions. And actually, religions have had this idea for a long time already. Oh, by the way, here's some of the steps that transhumanist thinkers are like promoting, and or that the steps that would lead to the human physical immortality, as you can see, that you upload the human consciousness at some point into a computer. And but the religions have had this idea of us, like ourselves, continuing our lives on some other plane of reality, or not in this reality at all when we have died. And here there are a couple of dangers with transhumanist ideas, by the way, and there's a lot of criticism about it. So the idea is not new, and well, I'm thinking about Buddhism, for instance, or well, Christianity, Islam. Well, especially those two latter ones, both are saying that when you die, if you have been good, then your immortal soul and I presume your consciousness also goes on some heavenly level if you have been good. And if you haven't, then you either well, you go into a less nice place. Buddhism also has several heavens and several hells, as far as I know, where the soul can go. So it's kind of a great big computer game where you gather karma points. I'm sorry if I'm being irreverent now to several religions at once. So this is just looking at religions from the point of view of this transhumanist movement and about the basic idea that the human consciousness could be like continuing somewhere else than in this world and in our own bodies. Then there's another theory that many cosmologists and physicists are now playing with. The idea is something you've probably heard about already, that supposedly there is some evidence that our universe could be a simulation already. But no actual proof has been found, but there are some hints and some cosmological constants that hint towards that, like the constant speed of light that you can't get faster. But I'm not a physicist, so I'm not going into that more deeper. Anyway, if this would be true, that the universe is a simulation, then what are we just non-player characters, or what are we? Or are we the player characters whose like real consciousness or real physical being is already somewhere else? So that's one other possibility. So Plato's cave is an old idea, as old as Plato, probably older. So that's one question, if this universe is a simulation. So Plato's cave goes from this idea that there are these prisoners who are forced to live their whole lives in a dark cave, and they never can see the real world outside, but they are shown these like shadow figures or real things on the cave walls. So they think that the shadows are the real world because they don't know nothing else. And when that prisoner is once led to the real world, then they will see the real shapes of things. So Plato had this idea of ideal shapes and forms, and that our real selves also live in this like other world, or that would be one possibility. Then, Hinduism and Buddhism, in some sense, they take another solution. So basically, there are no non-player characters at all, but there's only one soul who is jumping around in every living being. But the world would be still an illusion. And once a soul notices that it's that the world is not real, but just an illusion, or the Maya, then they would get out of the wheel and become one with the like basic soul of the world. Right, but you probably know this already. So I have been like asking myself for a while where where this problem with the, like, why do people think that reality is an illusion at all? Where does that come from? Like, why don't we accept reality as real, as such? So I've had this thought that maybe because we are animals with language, so maybe language itself creates some sort of virtual self inside our brains. So maybe the basic animal consciousness is there, yes, but there's another level of self that reflects on the animal self, and that makes us think that we don't belong to fully into this world. So I'm also not the only one who thinks that maybe our sense of self is an illusion and not the world. So there's also researchers, scientists who think this way. But yeah, this is one possibility. So then if we go back to Buddhism, well, Buddha thought that pain was the really important thing that also creates our sense of self and also a sense of survival. And I think there's something to it. I'm not a Buddhist as such, as you might have noticed from what I'm talking here, but that a living creature or any or maybe a digital organism, it needs some sort of emotion in order to survive. If it doesn't care about itself, then it won't survive for long. So it needs senses or sensors, and it needs to have some sort of sense for self-preservation. And in human beings and in other animals, it's mostly pain that we try to avoid having pain. So in that sense, Buddha was on the right track, I think. Yeah, here there is how I thought we would have like a conversation with ourselves, like our animal self and the human self having a conversation. And here's a bit about pain, how important that is for survival. So there is now a movement in robotics that thinks that robots should be taught pain, or should so that they could reach real consciousness like this. I mean, the robot is clearing pain, but it's getting out of the fire. So if you think of your laptop or your, or let's say, your phone, your mobile phone, it will not run out of the room that is on fire. It doesn't have a sense of self-preservation, so it's dumb in that sense. So what I'm thinking is that maybe the self-driving cars, maybe vacuuming robots that do need some sort of sensory information from the outside world and some sort of programmed self maybe they will get consciousness as an emergent thing. But the question is, will duplicating a mind ever really work? I'm not quite sure of that. But we'll see. I've played with the idea of, creating a chatbot version of myself, and then maybe recording myself in like volumetric video. So there is a lot of promise in volumetric video capture, where, well, 3D scans, of course. So volumetric video is the same, but you get the 3D version of the person on video. So this is a photo from a German facility called Volocap Studio, which is in Babelsberg, near Germany, near Berlin, I mean. We have done a project in the last couple of years together with them, where students were able to do some volumetric scans for free. Usually these cost a lot, as you can imagine. Sony, I've put a video here from Sony Studios, which is also as a link in Moodle that you can then watch on your own. The video is quite interesting, I'd say, but it's a little bit discouraging if you know that Sony closed their volumetric capture studios last year. But you have probably heard about ABBA, the band, having a new concert this spring, and they will do it as like 3D motion capture. I'm guessing that they will be holograms on stage then, but they won't be volumetric scans because the band members wanted to have like ideal versions of themselves and not those versions of how they physically look like right now. At least that's how I understood the coming ABBA concerts. Also, if you think about that they are quite old, maybe it's also better not to travel that much, especially if there's still COVID around. So basically you could use volumetric scanning for other things, such as if you think about the history of photography. In the 1800s, people started to take photos of their relatives and of themselves just to preserve the way they looked like for their family. So that's one business idea that I think nobody has still taken up, and it could be. I mean, if people wanted to have like a volumetrically captured video of their dog or their cat or their loved one, then they could meet that loved one in virtual reality, for instance, again and again, just like people are looking at photos of their loved ones. So I don't see why a photo studio, for instance, hasn't taken up this idea yet. But it might become popular once people have virtual reality sets in their homes, that they could watch their loved ones on their sets. And of course, for meetings, we have talked about virtual reality, social media. So having like a digital twin of yourself, maybe based on a 3D scan, might be a nice thing. Okay, so that was my presentation, and I'll put that into Moodle once we have stopped.